In the quiet corridors of Kensington Palace, where whispers travel faster than morning tea and secrets are currency more valuable than crown jewels, something extraordinary was about to unfold. Behind the carefully guarded gates, past the watchful eyes of protection officers, and, within the private walls that have sheltered royal dreams and heartaches for generations, Catherine and William were about to share news that would not only transform their own family forever but send waves of joy across an entire kingdom. What started as an ordinary Tuesday morning would become the day that millions of royal fans around the world had been hoping and waiting for. The day when the future king and queen would open their hearts and home to welcome someone special, someone who would complete their family in ways they never expected. This is not just another royal announcement. This is the story of love, hope, and the beautiful surprise that reminded the world why the House of Windsor continues to capture hearts across generations. The news was coming, and, when it finally broke, it would prove that some of the most magical moments in royal history happen not in grand ceremonies or state occasions, but in the simple, tender moments when a family grows and love multiplies in the most unexpected ways. The morning sun painted golden streaks across the windows of Adelaide Cottage as Catherine, the Princess of Wales, sat in her favorite armchair, cradling a warm cup of tea. The house was unusually quiet for a Tuesday morning. Prince George had already left for school, his backpack bouncing against his shoulders as he climbed into the car with his protection officer. Princess Charlotte was upstairs getting ready, her voice drifting down as she practiced a song she had learned in music class. Prince Louis, their youngest, was in the garden with his nanny, chasing butterflies and collecting leaves that caught his attention. William had left early for a series of engagements in Birmingham, but not before their usual morning ritual of sharing coffee and discussing the day ahead. These quiet moments had become precious to them over the years, stolen minutes before the demands of royal duty pulled them in different directions. Today, however, Catherine found herself lingering longer than usual, her mind occupied with thoughts that had been growing stronger over the past few weeks. The idea had first come to her during a visit to an animal shelter in Surrey the previous month. She had been there in her official capacity, highlighting the important work of animal welfare organizations across the United Kingdom. As she walked through the kennels, meeting dogs and cats of all ages who were waiting for their forever homes, one particular encounter had stayed with her long after she returned home. In the corner of a quiet room sat a golden retriever mix named Honey. The dog was about 3 years old, with kind brown eyes and a gentle demeanor that immediately drew Catherine's attention. Unlike some of the more energetic dogs she had met that day, Honey seemed almost wise beyond her years, sitting patiently as Catherine approached. When the princess knelt down to greet her, Honey had simply placed her head against Catherine's hand, as if seeking comfort and offering it at the same time. The shelter staff explained that Honey had been surrendered by an elderly owner who could no longer care for her due to health issues. The woman had been heartbroken to give up her beloved companion but wanted to ensure Honey would find a loving family. For weeks, potential adopters had visited, but somehow none had been quite the right fit for Honey's particular personality and needs. Catherine found herself thinking about Honey throughout the following days. During family dinners, while helping the children with homework, and, especially during quiet evening moments when the family was together, she would remember those gentle brown eyes. She began to imagine what it might be like to have a dog as part of their family dynamic, how it might bring even more warmth and joy to their already happy home. The idea wasn't entirely new. The children had been asking about getting a pet for quite some time. George, in particular, had developed a love for animals during their country walks and visits to farms. Charlotte had been drawing pictures of dogs and cats, leaving them strategically placed around the house where her parents couldn't miss them. Even Louis, though still young, showed remarkable gentleness with animals whenever they encountered them during public or private outings. William had grown up with pets at Highgrove, his father's country estate. He often spoke fondly of the dogs that had been part of his childhood, how they had provided comfort during difficult times and companionship during long school holidays. Catherine, too, had cherished memories of family pets from her youth in Berkshire, where her parents had always believed that animals taught children responsibility and compassion. But royal life came with unique considerations that made pet ownership more complex than it might be for other families. There were security concerns to consider, travel schedules that could be unpredictable, and the constant presence of staff and visitors who would need to be comfortable around animals. The logistics of caring for a pet while maintaining their royal duties required careful planning and consideration. Catherine had begun to research quietly, speaking with veterinarians, animal behaviorists, and other pet-owning families in their circle. She wanted to understand fully what would be required to give a dog the love, care, and stability it deserved while managing their unique lifestyle. The more she learned, the more confident she became that their family could provide an excellent home for the right pet. The conversation with William had started gradually. She had mentioned Honey casually at first, describing the visit to the shelter and the dogs she had met. William listened with interest, asking thoughtful questions about the animals and the important work being done at the facility. As the weeks passed, Catherine shared more of her thoughts about the possibility of adding a pet to their family. William's response was everything she had hoped for. Rather than immediately focusing on the potential challenges, he considered the positive impact a dog might have on their children and their family life. They talked about their own childhood experiences with pets, how those relationships had taught them valuable lessons about caring for others and the simple joy that animals could bring to daily life. Together, they began to discuss what kind of dog would be the best fit for their family. They wanted an animal with a calm temperament that would be comfortable around children, staff, and the occasional public appearance. They needed a dog that would be happy with both active family time and peaceful moments at home. Most importantly, they wanted to give a loving home to an animal that truly needed it. Their research led them back, again and again, to the idea of rescue adoption. Both Catherine and William felt strongly about the importance of giving homes to animals in shelters rather than purchasing from breeders. It aligned with their values of service and helping those in need, extending their commitment to making a positive difference beyond their human charity work. Catherine found herself returning to thoughts of Honey throughout December. She had stayed in contact with the shelter, ostensibly for follow-up on her official visit but really to check on the sweet dog who had captured her heart. Each time she called, she was told that Honey was still waiting for her perfect family, still showing the same gentle patience that had first drawn Catherine to her. The winter holidays had been filled with family traditions, gift exchanges, and the warm chaos of children excited about Christmas morning. But, in quiet moments, when Catherine watched her children playing together, laughing and caring for each other, she could easily picture a dog becoming part of these precious family scenes. William had noticed his wife's growing attachment to the idea, and, more specifically, to Honey. During their private conversations, he could see the excitement building behind Catherine's careful consideration of all the practical aspects. Her natural maternal instincts were extending toward this animal who needed a home, just as they did toward any child or person they encountered who needed care and support. As January began, Catherine made a decision that would change their family forever. On this particular Tuesday morning, with the house quiet and her tea growing cold in her hands, she picked up her phone and made a call that had been weeks in the making. She dialed the number for the animal shelter, her heart beating a little faster as she waited for someone to answer. When the familiar voice of the shelter coordinator came on the line, Catherine took a deep breath before speaking. The conversation that followed would set in motion events that would bring tremendous joy not only to the Wales family but to royal supporters around the world who had been hoping to see this loving family grow in new and wonderful ways. As she spoke, explaining her family's desire to provide Honey with the loving home she deserved, Catherine felt a sense of rightness about the decision that confirmed everything she had been feeling for weeks. This wasn't just about adding a pet to their household, it was about opening their hearts and home to a new family member who would bring her own special kind of love to their already blessed life. The next few hours would prove to be the beginning of an adventure that would touch the hearts of people far beyond the walls of Kensington Palace, reminding everyone who heard the story that some of life's greatest joys come from the simple act of opening your home to love in all its forms. The call to the shelter had gone better than Catherine could have hoped. Sarah Mitchell, the shelter coordinator who had guided Catherine during her original visit, was thrilled to hear from the princess again. When Catherine explained that she and William were seriously interested in adopting Honey, Sarah's excitement was barely contained, though she maintained the professional approach that had made her so effective in her role. "Your Royal Highness, I have to tell you, Honey is still here, and she's been waiting so patiently," Sarah said, her voice warm with genuine affection for the dog they were discussing. "We've had several families interested in her, but something about their situations just didn't feel quite right. She's such a special dog, and we've all been hoping the perfect family would come along." Catherine felt a flutter of anticipation as she listened. The timing seemed almost magical, as if everything had been waiting for this moment to fall into place. She and Sarah discussed the next steps, planning a private visit where Catherine could bring the children to meet Honey properly. They wanted to ensure that the match would be wonderful for both the family and the dog before making any final decisions. The conversation turned to practical matters. Sarah explained that Honey was fully vaccinated, spayed, and in excellent health. She had been working with a trainer at the shelter to reinforce basic commands and social skills, though her natural temperament was already remarkably well suited for family life. The dog was house-trained, comfortable around children, and had shown herself to be adaptable to new situations. After ending the call, Catherine immediately tried to reach William. He was between engagements, touring a youth center that supported young people developing job skills, and she knew he wouldn't be able to talk at length. When he answered his phone, she could hear the sounds of activity in the background, young voices and the general bustle of a busy facility. "Darling, I just called the shelter about Honey," she said without preamble, knowing that William would understand immediately what she meant. They had discussed this possibility so thoroughly that no explanation was needed. "And?" William's voice carried interest and anticipation despite the brief nature of their conversation. "She's still available, and they're excited about the possibility of us adopting her. I thought we could take the children to meet her this weekend, if you think that's a good idea." William was quiet for a moment, but Catherine could practically hear his smile through the phone. "I think that sounds perfect. The children are going to be absolutely thrilled. Should we tell them beforehand, or make it a surprise?" They decided together that they would tell the children about the planned visit but frame it as meeting a dog they were considering, rather than building up expectations too high. Both parents had learned the wisdom of managing their children's excitement while still allowing them to share in the family's decision-making process. When the children returned home that afternoon, Catherine and William gathered them in the sitting room for what they called a family meeting. These informal discussions were a regular part of their household routine, a way to include the children in appropriate decisions and help them feel that their voices mattered in their family life. George, at 11 years old, had developed a mature way of listening that sometimes surprised his parents. He sat cross-legged on the carpet, his attention fully focused as Catherine began to explain their potential new family addition. Charlotte, 9 years old and always expressive, couldn't contain her excitement as she realized what her parents were suggesting. Louis, at 5, didn't fully grasp all the details but picked up on his siblings' enthusiasm and began bouncing slightly in his seat. "We want to talk to you about something very special," Catherine began, watching their faces carefully. "You know how you've been asking about getting a pet, and we've been thinking about whether that would be good for our family?" 3 heads nodded eagerly, and Charlotte raised her hand as if she were in school. "Are we getting a dog?" she asked, her voice rising with hope. William took over the explanation, describing Catherine's visit to the animal shelter and the special dog named Honey who needed a loving home. He explained that they would visit together as a family to see if Honey might be the right fit for them, and, equally importantly, to see if their family would be right for Honey. The questions came rapidly after that. What did Honey look like? How old was she? Was she friendly? Would she like to play games? Could she come to their rooms at night? George, ever practical, asked about where Honey would sleep and who would be responsible for feeding her and taking her for walks. Catherine and William answered each question thoughtfully, using the conversation as an opportunity to discuss the responsibilities that come with caring for a pet. They talked about how having a dog would mean daily walks regardless of weather, consistent feeding schedules, and making sure Honey felt loved and secure in her new environment. Having a pet is different from having toys or even friends who come to visit, William explained. A dog becomes part of our family, and that means we have to think about her needs every single day. She would depend on us for everything: food, exercise, love, and care if she ever gets sick. Charlotte raised her hand again. Like how you and Mummy take care of us? Exactly like that, Catherine confirmed. When you love someone, whether it's a person or an animal, you want to make sure they're happy and healthy and safe. Louis, who had been listening with the serious expression he wore when processing important information, suddenly brightened. Will Honey play football with me in the garden? The family spent the next hour discussing what life with Honey might look like. They talked about establishing routines that would work for everyone, including the staff who helped run their household. Catherine explained that they had already spoken with their head of household and the security team about the logistics of having a dog, and everyone was prepared to help make it work if they decided to move forward. The children's excitement was infectious, but Catherine and William were pleased to see that they were also taking the responsibility seriously. George asked thoughtful questions about training and whether they would need to puppy-proof areas of the house. Charlotte wondered if Honey would like the other dogs they sometimes met during walks in the park near their home. As the week progressed, the anticipation in the household was palpable. The children drew pictures of dogs, researched dog care online, and asked their parents countless questions about what Saturday's visit might be like. Catherine found herself equally excited, though she tried to maintain a calm exterior for the sake of managing everyone's expectations. William had cleared his Saturday schedule, something he rarely did unless for significant family events. The fact that he had prioritized this visit spoke to how seriously both parents were taking this potential addition to their family. They had discussed privately how meaningful it would be to give Honey a loving home, but also how important it was to ensure that their decision was right for everyone involved. Catherine spoke again with Sarah Mitchell on Thursday to confirm their Saturday visit and discuss any special considerations. Sarah mentioned that Honey seemed to have an intuitive sense about people, often responding differently to visitors depending on their energy and intentions. She was curious to see how Honey would react to the children, though based on everything she had observed about the dog's temperament, she was optimistic about the meeting. Friday evening, as the family finished dinner together, the conversation naturally turned to their planned adventure the next day. Catherine found herself watching her children's faces, seeing the excitement and hope there, and feeling confident that they were making the right choice for all the right reasons. William reached over and squeezed her hand under the table, a small gesture that conveyed his shared anticipation and his appreciation for Catherine's instincts about what their family needed. Tomorrow would bring either a wonderful new beginning or valuable experience in considering their family's future, and either outcome felt right. The evening routine proceeded as normal, but there was an extra spark of excitement as the children got ready for bed. Tomorrow couldn't come soon enough for any of them, and the possibility of welcoming Honey into their lives had already begun to feel like the natural next chapter in their family's story. Saturday morning arrived with unusual energy in the Wales household. The children were awake earlier than normal, and even Louis managed to get dressed without his usual dawdling. Catherine had chosen casual clothing for their family visit, understanding that they wanted to make a good impression on Honey just as much as they hoped she would take to them. The drive to the animal shelter in Surrey took about 45 minutes, during which the children's excitement gradually mixed with nervous energy. George asked several times if they thought Honey would remember Catherine from her previous visit. Charlotte wondered aloud if Honey would like the special dog treats they had brought along. Louis, pressed against the car window, pointed out every dog they passed on the way, declaring each one beautiful and nice. William and Catherine exchanged amused glances as they listened to their children's chatter. Both parents were feeling their own mixture of anticipation and slight nervousness. They had made important family decisions before, but this felt particularly significant because it involved opening their hearts to a living being who would become permanently woven into the fabric of their daily lives. The animal shelter was located on a quiet country road, surrounded by fields and trees that provided a peaceful environment for the animals in care. As their car approached the main building, they could see several large fenced areas where dogs were playing and exercising. The sight of so many animals waiting for homes touched Catherine's heart again, just as it had during her first visit. Sarah Mitchell was waiting for them at the entrance, her warm smile immediately putting the children at ease. She knelt down to their level as Catherine made introductions, speaking to each child individually and asking about their excitement for meeting Honey. Her genuine interest in their feelings helped calm some of the nervous energy that had been building during the car ride. "Honey is very excited to meet all of you," Sarah told them as she led them toward the building. "She's been extra good this week, almost like she knows something special is happening." The shelter's interior was clean and cheerful, with colorful paintings created by local school children decorating the walls. The sounds of barking and meowing created a symphony of hope and need that reminded them all of the important work being done in places like this every day. As they walked toward the room where they would meet Honey, Sarah explained a bit more about the dog's personality and history. She had been surrendered with obvious reluctance by her previous owner, an elderly woman who had loved her deeply but could no longer manage the physical demands of pet care. Honey had grieved for several weeks after arriving at the shelter, eating little and showing minimal interest in activities or potential adopters. But something changed about 3 weeks ago, Sarah continued, glancing meaningfully at Catherine. "Right around the time of your Royal Highness's visit, actually. She became more social, more interested in meeting people. We think she was ready to open her heart to a new family." They paused outside a door marked with a small sign reading, "Meet and Greet Room." Through the window, they could see a golden-colored dog sitting patiently on a comfortable-looking dog bed, her tail wagging slowly as she noticed people approaching. Even from outside, they could see her gentle brown eyes and calm demeanor. "She's beautiful," Charlotte whispered, pressing her face against the glass. George stood quietly, taking in every detail of the dog they might welcome into their family. Louis tried to wave at Honey through the window, delighting when her tail wagged a bit faster in apparent response. Sarah opened the door and invited them in, instructing the children to move slowly and let Honey approach them at her own pace. What happened next exceeded everyone's highest hopes for the meeting. Honey stood up from her bed, her whole body expressing gentle excitement as she looked at each member of the family. She walked directly to Catherine first, as if remembering their previous encounter, and sat down in front of her with perfect manners. When Catherine extended her hand, Honey sniffed politely before resting her head against Catherine's palm in the same trusting gesture that had touched the princess's heart weeks earlier. William approached next, and Honey's response was equally warm. She seemed to sense his calm energy and settled easily when he knelt down to greet her. Her tail never stopped wagging, but she maintained the gentle composure that had impressed the shelter staff since her arrival. The children had been watching these interactions with fascination, and when Sarah indicated it was their turn to meet Honey, they approached with a mixture of excitement and respect that made their parents proud. George went first, sitting cross-legged on the floor and allowing Honey to come to him. She seemed to understand intuitively that he was trying to be mature and responsible, and she approached him with dignity before settling beside him. Charlotte couldn't contain her delight when Honey gently licked her hand, and her laughter filled the room with joy. Even Louis, the youngest and most energetic of the children, seemed to understand that this was a special moment requiring gentle behavior. When Honey sat beside him, he carefully petted her head while whispering, "Nice doggy, pretty doggy." For the next hour, they all spent time getting to know Honey in the comfortable meeting room. Sarah had provided toys and treats, allowing them to see how Honey played and responded to different activities. The dog showed perfect manners, gentle playfulness, and an remarkable ability to adjust her energy level to match whichever family member she was interacting with. When George threw a soft toy across the room, Honey retrieved it happily but brought it back calmly rather than with the frantic energy that might overwhelm a child. With Charlotte, she seemed to sense the little girl's love of gentle affection and was content to sit beside her receiving pets and offering companionship. Louis delighted in her willingness to shake hands when he offered his small hand, and his giggles made Honey's tail wag with apparent joy. William and Catherine found themselves exchanging looks of growing certainty as they watched their children interact with Honey. The dog's temperament was everything they had hoped for and more. She was clearly intelligent, responsive to direction, and possessed of the kind of steady personality that would thrive in their sometimes unpredictable lifestyle. But, more than her perfect manners or ideal temperament, there was something about the way Honey seemed to connect with each member of their family that felt almost magical. She appeared to understand intuitively what each person needed from her, offering playfulness to the children, calm companionship to the adults, and a sense of completion to the family as a whole. Sarah, who had been quietly observing from the corner of the room, was smiling widely as she watched the interactions. She had seen many successful adoptions during her years at the shelter, but there was something particularly special about watching this family and this dog discover each other. "What do you think?" Sarah asked gently when there was a natural pause in the activity. The children looked at their parents with hopeful faces, though Catherine noticed that they were trying to be patient rather than demanding immediate decisions. She and William had taught them well about the importance of thinking carefully about major choices. William looked at Catherine, and she could see in his eyes the same certainty she was feeling. They had found their new family member, and, more importantly, Honey had found her forever home. "I think," Catherine said carefully, watching Honey settle contentedly beside Charlotte, "that we need to discuss this as a family." She looked at her children. "What do you think? Do you feel like Honey would be happy living with us?" The chorus of enthusiastic "yes" responses that followed filled the room with laughter and joy. But Catherine noticed that George, ever thoughtful, raised an additional consideration. "I think she would be happy," he said seriously, "but we need to make sure we can make her happy every day, not just today when everything is exciting." His mature perspective impressed both his parents and Sarah, and opened the door for a family discussion about the commitment they would be making. Even in the excitement of the moment, they wanted to ensure that everyone understood the responsibility they were considering. The conversation that followed would determine whether this wonderful meeting was the beginning of Honey's new life with the Wales family or simply a beautiful memory of a day when love filled a shelter meeting room and reminded everyone present of the powerful connections possible between humans and animals. The family discussion that followed George's thoughtful comment proved to be one of the most meaningful conversations the Wales family had shared in months. Sitting in the cheerful meeting room with Honey resting peacefully among them, they talked openly about what it would mean to welcome her into their lives permanently. Catherine guided the conversation with questions that helped each child think through the practical realities of pet ownership. What would it mean to get up every morning for walks, even when they were tired or the weather was unpleasant? How would they handle the responsibility when they wanted to do other activities? What if Honey got sick and needed special care? Charlotte, always empathetic, worried about whether Honey might feel sad or scared in a new home after losing her previous family. Her concern touched Catherine's heart and opened the door for a discussion about how they could help Honey feel secure and loved during her transition to their family. "That's exactly the kind of thinking that shows you're ready for this responsibility," William told his daughter. "Taking care of someone else means thinking about their feelings and needs, not just our own excitement." Louis, despite his young age, surprised everyone by asking, "If we adopt Honey, does that mean she'll never have to worry about finding a home again?" When Sarah confirmed that adoption meant forever, Louis nodded solemnly and said, "Then, we should adopt her so she doesn't have to worry anymore." His innocent wisdom brought tears to Catherine's eyes and seemed to crystallize the decision that had been forming in all their hearts. This wasn't just about adding a pet to their household, it was about providing security and love to an animal who deserved both. George's practical nature led him to ask detailed questions about the logistics of bringing Honey home. Where would she sleep? What would happen when they traveled for royal engagements? How would they make sure she got enough exercise and attention when their schedules were busy? Sarah had clearly anticipated these concerns and was prepared with thoughtful answers. She explained that the shelter provided extensive post-adoption support, including training resources and veterinary recommendations. She also mentioned that they had worked successfully with other families who had demanding careers and travel schedules. The most important thing, Sarah emphasized, is that Honey knows she's loved and secure. Dogs are remarkably adaptable when they feel they belong somewhere. William and Catherine exchanged a look that communicated volumes about their shared feelings. They had both been thinking not just about logistics, but about the deeper significance of this moment for their family. In a world where their lives were often governed by protocol and public expectation, bringing Honey home would represent something purely personal and joyful. After about 20 minutes of discussion, Catherine posed the question that would formalize their decision. If we all agree that we're ready for this responsibility and that we can provide Honey with the loving home she deserves, should we make this official? The unanimous agreement that followed was enthusiastic but also thoughtful. Each family member, including young Louis, seemed to understand that they were making a significant commitment to another living being. Sarah's smile was radiant as she witnessed this moment of decision. She had been hoping for weeks that Honey would find exactly this kind of family, people who would love her not just as a pet, but as a genuine family member deserving of consideration, care, and permanent security. The adoption process that followed was surprisingly straightforward, though it involved several important steps. Sarah explained each form and requirement, ensuring that the family understood everything from licensing requirements to emergency veterinary procedures. William and Catherine appreciated the shelter's thoroughness, recognizing that these procedures were designed to protect both animals and their new families. One of the most touching moments came when Sarah presented them with a folder containing everything known about Honey's history, including photos from her life with her previous owner and notes about her favorite activities and personality quirks. The elderly woman who had surrendered Honey had left a letter for her new family, explaining how much joy Honey had brought to her life and expressing hope that she would bring the same happiness to her new home. Catherine found herself deeply moved as she read the letter aloud to her family. The woman's love for Honey was evident in every word, and her sacrifice in giving up her beloved companion to ensure Honey's welfare demonstrated the kind of selfless love that Catherine hoped to model for her own children. "She sounds like a wonderful person," Charlotte observed after hearing the letter. "I wish we could tell her that we'll take really good care of Honey." Sarah mentioned that the shelter occasionally facilitated communication between previous and new owners when appropriate, and that she would be happy to pass along messages of reassurance and gratitude. The idea that they might be able to ease the former owner's worries about Honey's welfare added another meaningful dimension to their adoption decision. As the paperwork was completed, practical arrangements needed to be made for bringing Honey home. The shelter provided a comprehensive adoption kit including food, toys, a leash, and other essential supplies to help with her transition. Sarah recommended waiting until the following day to take Honey home, giving them time to prepare their house and allowing Honey to rest after the excitement of meeting her new family. The children were initially disappointed about not taking Honey home immediately, but they quickly became excited about the prospect of preparing their house for her arrival. Catherine and William were grateful for the extra day to ensure everything was ready for their new family member. The drive home was filled with animated planning sessions. Charlotte wanted to make welcome signs for Honey's arrival. George began calculating walking schedules that would work around everyone's school and activity commitments. Louis announced his intention to show Honey all his favorite spots in their garden. William and Catherine found themselves caught up in their children's enthusiasm while also mentally reviewing all the preparations that needed to be made. They would need to brief their household staff about Honey's arrival, ensure that security protocols were updated to account for a dog who would need regular outdoor access, and create spaces in their home where Honey would feel comfortable and secure. That evening, their dinner conversation revolved entirely around Honey and her upcoming arrival. The children had dozens of ideas about how to help her feel welcome, from choosing the perfect sleeping spot to planning special walks that would help her explore her new neighborhood. Catherine called her parents to share the news, knowing they would be delighted about the addition to the family. Michael and Carol Middleton had always been animal lovers, and Catherine knew they would be eager to meet Honey and offer their support during her transition period. William shared the news with his father during their regular evening phone call, and King Charles's response was enthusiastically supportive. As a lifelong dog lover himself, he understood better than most how much joy and companionship a beloved pet could bring to family life. As the children were getting ready for bed, Catherine found herself reflecting on how this single decision would change their daily routines in countless small but meaningful ways. Morning walks would become family adventures. Evening time would include a furry companion who would undoubtedly claim her own favorite spots around their house. Their travels would require additional planning, but they would also gain a loyal friend who would make their home feel even more complete. The anticipation in the house that night was palpable. Tomorrow would bring Honey home permanently, beginning a new chapter in their family story that would bring joy, responsibility, and the unique kind of unconditional love that only a beloved pet can provide. As Catherine turned off the lights and headed to bed, she felt a deep sense of satisfaction about the decision they had made. Tomorrow, their family would welcome a new member who had been waiting patiently for exactly this moment to begin her forever life with people who would cherish her completely. Sunday morning dawned crisp and clear, with golden sunlight streaming through the windows of Adelaide Cottage as the Wales family prepared for one of the most special days in their recent memory. The house buzzed with an energy that was both excited and purposeful as everyone made final preparations for Honey's homecoming. Catherine had woken early to review the checklist she and William had compiled the night before. They had prepared a comfortable sleeping area in the kitchen with a soft bed and easy access to the garden. The children had arranged their welcome gifts nearby, a new toy from George, a hand-drawn portrait from Charlotte, and a collection of interesting sticks and stones that Louis had gathered from their garden. The family's breakfast conversation centered entirely on their plans for helping Honey settle into her new environment. They had decided to keep her first day relatively quiet, allowing her to explore the house and garden at her own pace without overwhelming her with too much activity or too many new experiences at once. George had appointed himself as the official photographer for Honey's arrival, armed with a camera to document every moment of her first day at home. Charlotte had spent considerable time the previous evening writing in her diary about their visit to the shelter and her feelings about welcoming Honey into their family. Louis had been practicing his gentlest voice all morning, determined to show Honey that he could be calm and careful around her. William had coordinated with their household staff to ensure everyone was prepared for their new four-legged family member. The gardening team had checked that the fencing around their property was secure and appropriate for a dog. The household staff had been briefed on Honey's feeding schedule and preferences. Even their security team had made adjustments to their protocols to accommodate regular dog walks and outdoor activities. The drive back to the shelter felt different from their previous trip. Where Saturday's journey had been filled with nervous anticipation and excited questions, Sunday's trip carried a sense of purposeful joy. They were going to bring home a family member who was already loved and wanted, someone they had chosen and who had, in her own way, chosen them as well. Sarah Mitchell was waiting for them again, but this time her smile was tinged with the bittersweet emotion that came with sending a beloved animal to her forever home. She had grown fond of Honey during the dog's stay at the shelter, and, while she was thrilled about this perfect adoption match, she would miss Honey's gentle presence. Honey seemed to sense that something significant was happening. As they approached her kennel area, she was already standing and, wagging her tail, her brown eyes bright with what looked remarkably like anticipation. When she saw the children, her whole body expressed happiness in the unmistakable way of dogs who know they are loved. The process of finalizing Honey's departure was both practical and emotional. Sarah provided them with detailed care instructions, contact information for follow-up support, and Honey's favorite toys from the shelter. She also gave them a small blanket that smelled like the shelter environment, explaining that familiar scents could help ease Honey's transition during her first few nights in a new place. As they prepared to leave, Sarah knelt down beside Honey for one final goodbye. Her whispered words of encouragement and love were clearly understood by the dog, who seemed to accept this farewell with the same grace she had shown throughout her time at the shelter. The moment of loading Honey into their car marked the official beginning of her life as a Wales family member. She settled into the specially prepared area with remarkable composure, though her alert expression suggested she understood that this journey was different from any she had taken before. The drive home was filled with gentle conversation directed at Honey, with each family member sharing thoughts about what they wanted to show her when they arrived at Adelaide Cottage. Catherine found herself watching Honey's face in the mirror, touched by the trust evident in the dog's calm acceptance of this major change in her circumstances. When they arrived home, they decided to let Honey explore the garden before bringing her inside. The moment she stepped onto the grass of her new home, something beautiful happened. Honey began to move with obvious pleasure, sniffing interesting scents, investigating the space, and, gradually claiming the territory as her own. Lewis was delighted when Honey showed interest in his collection of special sticks, and Charlotte was thrilled when Honey sat beside her on the garden bench as if they were already old friends. George captured every moment with his camera, creating what would become treasured family memories of Honey's first hours in her forever home. When they finally moved inside, Honey's exploration continued with the same dignified curiosity she had shown outside. She investigated each room methodically, always returning to check in with family members as if to confirm that they were part of this wonderful new reality. The children were exemplary in their behavior throughout Honey's first day. They remembered all the discussions about letting her adjust at her own pace, and they managed their excitement in ways that must have helped Honey feel secure rather than overwhelmed. Catherine and William watched their children's considerate behavior with pride, recognizing that this experience was already teaching valuable lessons about empathy and responsibility. Honey's response to her new environment exceeded everyone's hopes. She seemed to understand intuitively that she was home, settling into the rhythm of the household with remarkable ease. When Catherine showed her the comfortable sleeping area they had prepared, Honey investigated it thoroughly before lying down with a contented sigh that seemed to say she approved of the arrangements. The evening routine provided the first real test of how well Honey would adapt to their family life. She watched with interest as the children completed homework and prepared for school the next day. She followed Catherine as she moved through the house attending to various tasks. When William returned from a brief walk to check the garden gate security, Honey greeted him at the door as if she had been doing so for years. Dinner time was a particular success. Honey ate her meal with good appetite in the kitchen area they had designated for her, then settled nearby while the family enjoyed their own dinner. Her presence felt natural and comfortable, as if there had always been a honey-shaped space in their family circle that was finally being filled. As bedtime approached, the question of where Honey would spend her first night became the focus of family discussion. They had prepared a comfortable area in the kitchen, but Honey's preference seemed to be wherever her family was located. After consulting with each other, they decided to let her choose her own sleeping spot for her first night, understanding that she might need the comfort of being near her new pack. Catherine found herself deeply moved as she tucked each child into bed and they shared their thoughts about Honey's arrival. Charlotte whispered that she thought Honey seemed happy to be with them. George expressed satisfaction that they had been able to give Honey a good home. Lewis announced his intention to show Honey his favorite breakfast cereal the next morning. When Catherine came downstairs after completing the children's bedtime routine, she found Honey lying contentedly in the sitting room near William, who was reading while keeping one hand available for the occasional pat. The sight of her husband and their new dog sharing this peaceful moment filled her with a sense of completeness she hadn't fully anticipated. As the house settled into its nighttime quiet, Honey made her own decision about sleeping arrangements. She positioned herself in the hallway where she could monitor both the kitchen area where her bed was located and the stairway leading to the family bedrooms. Her choice seemed to reflect both independence and dedication to her new pack, a perfect balance for a dog who was already proving to be an ideal family member. Catherine and William's final conversation of the day, conducted in whispers as they prepared for bed, centered on their amazement at how naturally Honey had integrated into their family life. In less than 24 hours, she had transformed from a shelter dog waiting for a home into an essential member of the Wales household. As Catherine drifted off to sleep, she could hear the gentle sound of Honey adjusting her position in the hallway below, settling in for her first night as a permanently loved and wanted family member. Tomorrow would bring new routines, new adventures, and the beginning of countless memories with their newest family member. The adoption of Honey represented more than just adding a pet to their household. It symbolized the Wales family's commitment to opening their hearts and home to love in all its forms, their willingness to take on responsibility for another's welfare, and their understanding that some of life's greatest joys come from the simple act of providing a safe, loving home for someone who needs it. As royal fans around the world would soon learn, this addition to the Wales family would bring not only private joy to Catherine, William, and their children, but would also serve as a beautiful reminder that love, compassion, and the desire to care for others are values that transcend all boundaries of status or circumstance. Honey's story would inspire countless families to consider opening their own homes to animals in need, creating a ripple effect of compassion that extended far beyond the walls of Adelaide Cottage. In the quiet of that first night, with Honey standing gentle guard over her new family, the Wales household was complete in a way that felt both new and utterly right. The newest member of the family had found her forever home, and her forever family had discovered the particular joy that comes from rescuing and being rescued in return.